Hey guys, welcome back to our JavaScript beginner course. In the last episode, we explored loops and iterations on how to repeat code efficiently with the for loop, while loop, and the do while loop. We even learned how to use the break and continue statements to control our loops. If you missed it, be sure to check out the link in the description to watch the video. And today we are going to dive into a super important concept, that is functions in JavaScript. Functions allow us to group our code into reusable blocks, making our programs cleaner and easier to manage. And in this episode, we'll be covering functions, declaration versus expressions, arrow functions, and the parameters and return values that are used in functions. So let's get started and level up our JavaScript skills. First of all, what are functions? A function is like a machine that takes in inputs and does some work and then gives an output. For example, let's say you have a coffee machine and you put in water and coffee beans as input. It does some work and gives you a cup of coffee as an output. In programming, a function is a reusable block of code that performs a specific task, and you can call the function whenever you need it. And there are two main ways to define functions in JavaScript, that is function declaration and function expression. So let's start with function declarations at first. A function declaration is the traditional way to define a function in JavaScript, and here's how it looks like. You have to first type out the function keyword, followed by the name of the function, that is greet for now, a set of parentheses for passing in inputs or parameters, and then open a pair of curly braces for the function code. So what I want to make this function do is print out hello world onto the console. Hello world. And the way to execute a function is to call it. And how you call a function is by writing its name, followed by a set of parentheses where you want to pass in values. For now, it doesn't take any input, so I'm not passing in any parameters, that is values or inputs inside the function while calling it. So it should print out hello world. Now, if I want to create a function which greets the user by taking the name of the user as an input, I would have to define a parameter called name for this function and put it inside the parentheses. This name parameter can now be used anywhere inside the function. So I'm going to use string concatenation to print out a greeting with the username on it. So let me remove hello world and just add an empty space right here, plus name and then an exclamation mark. So if you have defined a function with parameters, you need to pass in arguments, which are basically parameters but for calling the function, and they are the real values that are passed into the function in order for them to be used in place of the predefined parameters. So if I put in Sam as an argument when calling the function, it takes the place of the name parameter, and subsequently instead of name, Sam is set to this parameter right here. So it should print out hello Sam. So let's see if it outputs that. So you can see that it outputs hello Sam. Now if I were to type anything inside the string, suppose haha, it would print out hello haha because it takes the place of the name parameter. This argument takes place of the name parameter and it is used in its place. Parameters can be more than one as well. So if I were to type name1 and name2, I would have to pass in values such as haha and Sam. It's best practice that if two parameters are defined in the function, you should call two arguments while calling the function. And they are in sequential order, so haha takes the place of name1 and Sam takes the place of name2. So if I were to type hello name1 and then plus name2, it would output hello haha then Sam, because this is in place of name2. Now if I were to omit Sam, this value would result in undefined. See? So we should define arguments while calling a function, and the number of arguments should be equal to the number of parameters defined. And that is about it for function declaration. Now moving on to the function expression. A function expression is when you assign a function to a variable. That is, it is similar to a function declaration but with a simple difference, and here is the syntax for it. I'm going to create a variable called greet, and I'm going to assign a function to this variable, function, and then console.log hello world. And then in a similar way to function declaration, to use the function you have to call the variable name. So it prints out to hello world. And notice that the function does not have any name for it since it is assigned to a variable already. And this can be taken as the function name as well. The variable name can be taken as the function name. And the function which does not have any name is called an anonymous function. And if we want to use parameters for this, we can use parameters in a similar way to function declaration. That is name, and then instead of hello world, we can use the place of name. And when calling the function, you have to pass in arguments as we discussed earlier. So hello Sam, and it will output to hello Sam. So you can use both function declaration and function expression, and it is up to you. And now we'll be moving on to arrow functions. An arrow function is a shorter way to write functions in JavaScript, and they are especially useful when you want to write small functions in just one line of code. And this is the simple syntax for an arrow function, which uses the concept of function expression. That is, it assigns a function to a variable, and a set of parentheses followed by the arrow symbol, which is equals to and greater than, and then curly braces is the arrow function syntax. And we use the arrow symbol to separate the parameters, if any, from the function body, that is the curly braces. So there are some differences between the arrow function from the function declaration and expression. There is no use of the function keyword, and I'm going to demonstrate the use of the arrow function. So let me remove this, declare the same variable const greet equals to parentheses, the arrow symbol, that is equal to and greater than, curly braces, then console.log hello world. And we have to call the arrow function before running it. It prints out to hello world. And if your function has only one line of code, then the arrow function can be even shorter. That is, it doesn't have to make use of the curly braces if it has only one line of code. In the above example, we use only one line of code, so we don't have to use any curly braces, and instead it can be all in the same line. That is line 2. So this is an arrow function in itself, and it outputs to the same code or the same result. Now if we want to make use of parameters, we can type in parameters here, hello name, and then the same way as before, plus name, and it will output. We have to be careful while using the parameters because we have to pass in arguments as well. Hello Sam. I forgot to add a space here, so it should output to hello space Sam. So this is the way to use an arrow function. It helps you to write shorter and cleaner code which is easy to read. And now we'll be moving on to the concept of returning functions or value returning functions. And value returning functions make the use of return values. The return values are the outputs that the function gives back after it's done processing. And here is an example of a function that adds two numbers and returns the values. So I'm going to use function declaration for this. Function add, with the parameters being a and b, the two numbers to add. And let's say return is a keyword. It returns the value of a plus b. And if we call the function and assign it to a variable called result equals add, suppose the two numbers we want to add are 2 and 3, Then we print out the result variable. We can see that it outputs to 5 because A and B are occupied by 2 and 3 respectively, and 2 plus 3 is returned to this place right here and it is stored in result. So it outputs the result. Now if I type out plus 1, it should output to 6 because this holds the value of 5, that is the sum of A and B, that is 2 and 3. This value is returned to the place where the function is called with the arguments, and it can be used as a value as well. So this can be assumed as 5. 5 plus 1, it should output to 6. So that is the concept of returning values or returning value returning functions, which makes the use of return values. And if I were to write this function in the form of an arrow function, I would do it like this. I would have to remove the function keyword since the arrow function does not need a function keyword. Declare a variable called add with the const keyword, and then equals to the parameters in the parentheses and the arrow symbol. Now since I have used the curly braces, I should use the return keyword, and let's test this by changing the value here to 2. So this should output to 7. And if I were to write this all in the same line, since it is a single line of code, I would not need to use the return keyword at all, since it automatically assumes that this expression is returned. So this should work the same with the arrow function. As you can see, no return value is used, but since it is a single line of code with no code blocks, as in no parentheses, it does not need a return keyword. So this works as such. And this is how you use arrow functions with return values. That was it for today's episode. Before we wrap up, we have yet another mini challenge for you guys, and in this challenge you have to guess what is wrong with this code below. You can write your answers in the comments. And just for a summary, today we learned about function declarations, function expressions, arrow functions, and return values. And in the next episode, we are going to be learning about objects. So make sure you tune in. If you like the video, drop a like and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next one.